Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the November 18th, 2021 Board of Education meeting of the Horsehead Central School District Board of Education. Ladies and gentlemen, we apologize for the lateness. However, at the start of the meeting, we had a few individuals that could not comply with the mandatory masking indoors on school facilities authorized and required by the New York State Department of Health. We apologize for the dynamics of being late, but we also must remind people that at this point, all school districts in New York State are governed by indoor masking requirements. We will be having a discussion about maybe trying to have a little better seating position going into the winter later in this meeting, but at this time, anytime you're in school, on the property, indoors, all participants must be masked. Thank you. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to our board president, Ms. Christine Dale.
Okay, good evening, everybody. Can I have everybody join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, first up on our agenda is item 2, the approval of our minutes from October 14th. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved. Second.
Any comments, questions, or discussion on the minutes? Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Okay, item 3 on our agenda is our time for community questions and comments. So the way we conduct this session, if anybody would like to make a comment or ask a question, I'd ask you to come up to the podium. You have 3 minutes, so please, when we get close to the end of the 3 minutes, I will give you a warning. When you do come up to the podium, please state your name and address, and then you are welcome to make your comment. So I'll open it up right now. If anybody in the, go ahead. Just step up to the podium to the microphone, please.
Can I take my mask off?
Yeah, the microphone will pick you up. Yep, we need to leave our masks on.
My name's Gerald Fernkranes.
I'm going to ask you to wait till you get to the microphone because we are live streaming for the community. Thank you.
And Gerald, I'm sorry, I didn't recognize. That's okay. My name's Gerald Fernkranes. Oh, okay.
That way they'll be able to hear you.
Okay. My name's Gerald Fernkranes, 4191 Main Street, Millport, New York. It was in the early 90s when I wrote my first letter to the editor regarding what seemed a breach of integrity in the Horsehead School District. SAD, Students Against Drunk Driving, held over-under night at the Rusty Nail. Underage students were allowed entrance to the party without access to alcohol. Those of age imbibed to earn money for their sad efforts. Seemed hypocritical introducing underage students to the drinking culture under the guise of anti-drunk driving. Certainly lacked common sense. As I look through my letters and memos on education over the years, it blazed the trail to where we are today. The story of our education system lacking, even shunning integrity, a trend locally on the micro level. Watching news today, we see the corruption of the national education industry on the macro level, on the same path. From Loudoun County, Virginia, to California, where school board members mocked parents for their concerns of the schools being closed during the pandemic. In Loudoun County, the National School Board Association marshaled federal government to send the FBI to investigate parents expressing concerns at board meetings, labeling them domestic terrorists. Critical race theory infiltrating our curriculum all across the nation. Social engineering taking precedent over education of disciplines. Thomas Jefferson saw good public education essential to democracy. I say poor public education is essential to socialism. The dumbing down and degrading of America's education system serves that purpose. Having served on a school board, I witnessed the superior elitist attitudes those boards had. Not just Horseheads, but shared with the districts in the area. Board members asked me, "You have no children, why do you want to be on the school board?" My answer was, "I'm concerned about all the children and their education." I then realized many school board members were there for their own special interests and advantages for their children or themselves. The major part of the student body has little to no representation, self-serving the motive of most members. Our education system has been hijacked by what I term elitist pseudo-intellectual bottom feeders. Those people thinking themselves the smartest in the room with the arrogance to lay out the world for everyone. Extensive schooling, indoctrination in how smart they are, not endowed with critical and independent thought. Molded into smart Alex, unwise guys dangerous to the world around them.
Sir, I just want to remind you, we are at 3 minutes, so if you can try to wrap it up in the next 30 seconds, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay, I'll have to move on. Okay. How do I know this? Being out of the loop so long, I'm talking about local now, in Horseheads. That unnecessary monstrosity stadium out there, costing so much and serving so few of the students. That tendency for today's education leaning heavily to show over substance. As America degrades to the bottom of education in the industrialized nations, ostentatious symbols so much more important than educational results. A monstrous monument to greed, gluttony, and elitism. If our education system is devoid of integrity, so will our society be. Without integrity, our culture, our society is headed for tyranny. I wish I could have done
Thank you.
the part in between, but...
Thank you. If you want to leave that with us, we can make sure we all get to read it.
Okay.
Yep.
I'll make a copy for everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate you coming, and I'm sorry I had to cut you off. We have to stick to board policy and give everybody equal time. Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Thank you. Do we have anybody else that would like to speak this evening? Okay, go ahead, you can come up. Just going to ask you to state your name and your address, and like I said, we have 3 minutes for each person.
Okay. My name is Vincent Azzarelli. I live at 11 Clubhouse Drive. One of the things I'm very concerned about is the expansion program and all the remodeling that's being done, the $120 million program, I think it is. I'm very concerned about it. A lot of people are concerned about it, especially now that Southport's closing has been announced, and there's a consideration for the number of families that will be moving the area and how that will affect not only the county, but also the school district. We've looked at the program and the plans, the 19 slides that were put on the internet, and we really would like to see some more information on the planning and the phasing of that and how it's going to work. That's really what we're concerned about. It's a lot of money, and with anywhere from 250 to 400 families potentially leaving the area, we think it's going to have a real effect on the school district and the rest of the county. So please consider that and make some adjustments if you think they're necessary. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have anybody else that would like to speak? Go ahead.
Mr. Azzarelli, I'll make a comment after we get through the others so I can try to help you with your comments. I'll make a comment after we're done, if you want to stick around for that.
I've got a phone call that I just got that
I know you're in county government, so I understand.
Hi, my name is Christy Harmer, and our address is 7 Hunters Run in Horseheads. About a month ago, I sent an email through Nancy Perillo to the board after a decision that was made. I was unhappy with a request I made of the district. I wanted my child to stay at Big Flats for the remainder of the school year. My request was denied, so I followed up with an email to the board. I trust that Dr. Douglas shared that with you, so I don't want to necessarily take up my time to go over the details of it, but I felt like I still needed to come and advocate, not just for myself, but for other families. I think that the board plays an important role in guiding outcomes for the district for all families, and I sometimes wonder how much information you're given on day-to-day situations, how much you know about decisions that are made. It seems like I hear a lot of frustration from other parents about things that happen that really cause the divide to be even further. Instead of trying to connect home and school to be on the same team, it seems like there's a lot of frustration. In particular, COVID has caused a lot of frustration for everyone. So when I say that, I was really hoping the district would be more understanding, like they've asked of us to be throughout all of this. Aside from all of the details that I shared in my email, I was shocked by the process to get information to the board. So I follow rules. I think they're important. I think that it's important to have a process to filter and organize information that comes to you. Obviously, everybody can't bring you everything they're unhappy about. So I understand that. And I think you have to go to the right person at the right time if you have a complaint. I did that. I met with Mr. Gill. I spoke with Dr. Douglas. And then when I still wasn't happy, my complaint went back to the same people who I had to trust would get you the information. So it just seems, I just wish there was a better process, a more transparent process. So I'm happy to answer questions. I'm not looking for anything necessarily, just to share some frustration on my own behalf and other people's. So, thank you.
Thank you, I appreciate you coming. Do we have anybody else? You can step up. Just want to remind you to state your name and your address, and you have 3 minutes.
My name is Catherine Sophia, and we live at 31 South Carroll Street in Horseheads. I'm here on the topic of the quarantine policy that we have. Mr. Douglas and I have spoke about this before. I have the New York State Education Health and Safety Guide for the school year 2021-2022, and I'm just going to read from it real quick. The CDC guidance documents defines a close contact as someone who was within 6 feet of an infected person for a cumulative total of 15 minutes or more over a 24-hour period. Exception, in bold letters, it says, in the K through 12 indoor classroom setting, the close contact definition excludes students who were within 3 to 6 feet of an infected student if both the infected student and the exposed student are correctly and consistently wore well-fitting masks the entire time. This exception does not apply to teachers, staff, or other adults in the indoor classroom settings. So I did speak with Mr. Douglas about this, and he explained that it's not necessarily this that you guys are going by, and that it's the health department. But I since then have been asking around at our sister schools, and I found that Corning actually, and maybe it's because their health department is a different county, they are just, if you've been exposed, you get a test. If it's negative, you go back to school. I'm wondering if there's anything we can do to move forward into trying to get rid of this 10-day quarantine. It's very disruptive, most importantly, to the children's education. I know some kids did very well with homeschooling. Mine did not, as well as many other families. And I'm just concerned because we're going on now our second year here of back and forth, in school, out of school. And of course, I'm concerned with everybody, everybody needs to be safe, and the kids don't mind wearing masks, mine don't anyway, and they take their hand sanitizer and wash their hands constantly. I don't know how many more 10-day quarantines I can go through, having to take off work, and the kids not really getting the education that they need, because they don't listen to me when I'm trying to explain things to them for school-wise. They do much better in in-school settings. So I was hoping to get some answers on that and wonder why these, New York State education guidelines are put out, but then we're doing something completely different when 20 minutes up the road, they go right back to class if they're not positive. So that's why I'm here. That's my concern. That's pretty much it.
Thank you. Do we have anybody else this evening? Dr. Douglas, I'll turn it over to you if you want to address any of it.
Yeah, I'll try to address a couple of things. First of all, on the quarantine, just because that's right in my mind. We are about to have a little discussion later tonight about what's known as Test to Stay that the county just authorized last week. We are getting the testing. We are planning, and I'll do this later, but we are planning on making that available to new direct contacts right after the Thanksgiving recess. So that will help. But there are severe and strict protocols and rules to that. As far as the CDC, yes, the CDC put out that, New York State Department of Health put out it, but they give official guidance to our local health departments, and each county's health department is ultimately charged with making that for their county. Steuben County is different from Chemung, good or bad. I believe, and I'm not sure, I think Steuben has selected to do test out of quarantine, which is a program. Chemung County has not. We talked about that on our bi-weekly call, and they're researching it, but they're not ready for that. First of all, trying to get tests is more difficult at this point. We hear that those tests are starting to free up. We're waiting on our own shipment, so that will help Test to Stay. So unfortunately, we don't quarantine as a district. We enforce just what we have. All quarantines are ultimately orders of the Department of Health. They're the only ones that can. We just assist them, and if we have something, we know you're going into quarantine, we turn it over to the county, but we tell you to try to get it started as quickly as possible. So any questions like that, I hate to say it, you'd have to call the county health department. They do try to use all of those metrics before they put somebody in direct contact. That's the difficulty. Hopefully, we will get towards the end of it, but right now, we're just not there, and we are obligated, and the board has basically charged my team and my administrative staff with following New York State Department of Education, New York State law, New York State Department of Health law, or the county law when it comes to anything COVID-related. So I hope that helps, and that's what we're doing at this point. Okay? Christy, I know that you spoke. The board has gotten your letter. We will have a response. The only correction I would make is I've only spoken to you once on the phone saying I'd bring it here. I have not had a sit-down with that, so I hope you understand. You sort of went to Tony, I can't go back to you because you've already went past me, okay? But that doesn't mean one thing or another. I'd probably tell you the same thing as Tony, but I've talked to the board, and then I will give you the district's position probably in the next couple of days. Mr. Frinkrantz, if you want, just because I know you got more in yours, I'll be happy to talk to you about our building project, what it means. I'm trying not to be ostentatious about it, but I'm also lowering the taxes and trying to build the district for the future, which has been my charge. I will always keep fiscal responsibility and integrity at the forefront of what we're doing to try to make sure your hard-earned money, everybody's hard-earned money, as much as possible, comes back from the state to this district. But you know me, we've talked before, you're welcome to come in, I'll sit down and talk, but I'll make sure the board gets your letter. As for Mr. Azzarelli, who came in and made a statement and then left, I wish he would have stayed around, because if it's important enough to make the statement, you should stay around and get the answer. The answer is, we have had multiple meetings over this next capital project over the past 5 months. 2 in the past 2 weeks, that one was even last night, for full presentations, discussions, questions answered by the board. There will be a public hearing on November 30th in the Multimedia Center from 6 o'clock before we go to vote on a board-authorized resolution on December 7th. We have the cost implications, and I'll be happy to talk to anybody or any group. We've been out doing that as well. The district cannot take a position on yay or nay for the project. We leave it up to the voters, and the voters decide. So I hope that answers Mr. Azzarelli, and he's welcome to come back to our public hearing as well. But we have extensively reached out, so to come at this point would be a little more difficult to say it's just 18 pages. It's been a significant amount of work for this board, this community as well. So we'll always answer questions, but you got to dedicate the time to come get those answers too. Ladies and gentlemen, that's all I have until my section.
Thank you, and thank you to everybody who did come and speak. We really appreciate community members coming and speaking and sharing their concerns with us, so thank you very much. So I'm going to turn it over to our student representative, Caitlin.
All right, good evening, everyone. We'll start with sports. Winter sports have started, and the end of fall sports results are in. JV girls soccer won their stack championship, and girls volleyball also won their stack championship. They also won their sectional title and competed in the regional semifinal. Girls swimming won the sectional title, and one diver, Emma Barchart, will be headed to states competition. The marching band ended their season at the end of October in the Carrier Dome, placing 5th in Large School 2. In high school club news, the Academic Challenge team competed in their first competition of the year, Twin Tiers Quiz League. The mock trial team will be starting up again this year and will compete in the state mock trial competition. The Green Room Players presented their show All Together Now last week to great reception. Cast and crew are very proud of what they put out for our community in only 5 weeks and are extremely happy to be back on stage performing after a 616-day hiatus. Upcoming are auditions for the variety show as well as the spring musical. Speaking of, I'm happy to announce that the spring musical for this year will be the show Once on This Island. Look forward to tickets going up for sale around February for the show in March. The Horseheads High School choirs will be participating in the annual Arctic League broadcast that they will each be presenting a choral piece. The school a cappella groups will combine for this event as well and also perform a piece. This week, Student Council is hosting a food drive. They encourage you to donate what you can to the food bank. Some of the most wanted items this time of year are canned food, box stuffing, peanut butter, and canned fruit. The Powder Puff football game will take place next Monday. Senior girls versus junior girls playing flag football, and some of the boys will be performing cheer routines. The senior class is collecting donations to the Arctic League and Toys for Tots. Toy donations will go to Toys for Tots, and any monetary donations will go to the Arctic League. That's all.
Okay, thank you, Caitlin. Next up on our agenda are presentations. So we have the district energy consumption presentation with Mike Coughlin and Dan DeLorme.
And if the board could send best wishes to Dan. Dan is ill this evening, so he could not come out. So we have Mr. Coughlin to give his engineering might on energy performance along with the trainings of Dan DeLorme.
Good evening, everybody. How are you? Let me just...
All right, good evening, everybody. I do want to speak for Dan. Dan was excited. We talked about a month ago. It's been a while. We've been busy. I'm pretty proud of this program. When I first came on district about 10 years ago, Dan DeLorme, physics teacher, Benny the energy manager, helping us as he's gone through retirement to bring on Kevin Clark and others. This is his world. He does phenomenal things for the district. Data-driven Dan, all right? So I'll try to do my best on his graphs and explain and answer, but he is very disappointed he couldn't be here tonight. So
With that, let's talk a little bit what we do. We manage the purchasing and the use of energy district-wide. We purchase our energy through OOCM BOCEs. There's hundreds of clients in this purchasing group. We get it at a very reduced rate. We trend to watch for that. We've been doing that for a number of years. From that trending, we help set the budget based off consumption from the past, where we feel we're going to go, working with Katie in the business office. The monthly audits, physical walkthroughs, breaks, holidays, weekends. This is where we kind of get a bad name for ourselves, because we go around and find things and hear all the negatives on it. But it is a big, we need to get in the buildings. We come in the middle of the night, to see what they're doing in the off hours that we'll talk about. It's a very important part for the amount of energy consumption we use in the district. We manage and maintain the Energy Cap program usage database. This is the #1 database for energy conservation in the country. They bring people in for Dan. Dan has mastered this, and there's not a time we couldn't tell you a space. When the bus garage is leaving the doors open a little too much, we call Jason, because we know about the degree days and things like that. Dan catches that. Something's not broken, and I'm just picking a little on Jason on that, but we know that's how, something was over there that caused us that energy based off trending data from the past, if it been what the temp was, what it cost us, and what it should have been based off this data. So it's real-time information, and we work that out monthly. Something we're real excited about, and you're talking knowledge, is we're managing and maintaining the new Nyserda Siemens Smart Schools data. We brought this program on to most of all of our heating controls, like everything, have gone network. They're online, it's real data all the time. This program to bring in, we brought in with over $500,000 with rebates applied to the 2030 project, working with Siemens on multiple buildings. Currently, Gardner Road and Sing Sing are ones, and we get information from them once a month. We review that. That'll tell us stuff that it's monitoring it 24/7. If a pump's not working to where it should be, if set points should be changed, we're giving information to stuff to review, changes, work with our engineering, and that seems to be very exciting, and it's real-time information to maintain that. We also maintain and monitor daily district climate control. For instance, tonight there's someone in this space, literally daily set points for large groups, not so much the classrooms and so forth, we know we're there. They're maintained. If there's going to be an event in here tonight, energy's brought on, it's ready for you to be here. If no one's going to be in here, then we bring it down to a set point that we've designed. It would be energy efficient, then we got to bring it up. And I make a note, it's not the 25% time we're going to talk about, it's that 75% of the time a building's empty. If you count weekends, summers, nights, and you go on, it's kind of hard to really do that, but that's the time, 75% of the time, that we've really focused over the last, since I've been here, it was able for us to bring the set point up in the buildings without seeing a change in energy consumption. So that's a big part of what we work on. So I got a little case study here, and it was kind of Dan, and we challenged Dan to come out with it a little bit, because I know some of the conversations have been of all the stuff we're bringing on, and what can we look at? We have all this information almost 20 years now, and we went back and looked at middle school and IS was the last time we had a big change. In 1996, when it came to field house, and then where we are 2019, field house and other things there. So a little bit of a comparison, and I'll do my best with Dan's numbers. We tried to simplify it. It changed the square footage, as well as other investments we've made. So when you get to that, things that would lead to an increase in natural gas consumption, addition to the field house. In 2003, we based this off 96 because that was our baseline. This represents equivalent to about 20.5% of increase in square footage. If you base it off energy, and we do it to be a two-story building, square footage, as far as heating, and it's as a rule, gymnasium's a little higher consumption than energy. So that was brought on in 2002 after the 96. This area needed to be heated at this complex. The conversion from all the electric to largely natural gas was done in the kitchens in this project. Things that would decrease the gas consumption, replacement, at that particular time, there are 50s era, but it wasn't 50s boilers in there. But the building had steam throughout of it. We switched over to steam to all of its hot water now, put in 6 Airco hot water heaters, boilers in the summer of 2008. So what's that mean if we look at the graph a little bit? So if you look on the left side, that shows you the energy consumption in that building. And if you look at that case study we used from 1996, the yellow or gold lines that you're seeing is actually what we're using today. All right, and the BATCC usage, that's if we didn't use a program. It kind of shows us our cost avoidance. But the two graphs you really want to look at is what we used comparison on gas back then and what we're using on gas now in the building. Kind of a...
Mr. Cotter,
Yes.
can you go back to that last slide?
Yep.
Because I think when you're looking at any type of graphing, that June, July, August, and September, that cost avoidance were virtually about the same exact cost during that time, correct?
Yeah, you're going to see on the next chart, Dr. Douglas, you know, you won't see much in those months. As a rule, you've always bring buildings right down to nothing. You know, boilers are down when you can bring them down. Very limited activity. You're not seeing the, you know, you come around in the summertime, it'd be lighting and all. So that's standard on those months. You would not see those savings.
And that shows what's the difference of what's going on in the outer months on both ends versus what we're using and what we're expecting.
Correct. And this particular graph we're looking at is...
Excuse me, Mike.
Yes.
What does BATCC stand for?
I knew I was going to get tested with that one today. And this was Dan's spot. So,
Dan took many points away from me
Yeah.
for not having complete graphs when I was here.
so I made a note. I knew I was going to be asked that. That's baseline adjusted to current cost.
Thank you.
So that would show you not using a program where we'd be right now, and we kind of use it. That's when you see a lot in our reports, the cost avoidance. That's what that's talking. So there's a value to that. That's if nothing was being used. All right. So off that, as Dr. Douglas was showing, and you can look at those summer months again, you know, this is actually getting off a graph, some raw numbers to show you that supports the graph on the other side. Just shows you after a program, you know, what we're doing now, you know, currently to what we've done in the past. All right, not only that square footage, and we're going to get to it when we get over to electric here, show you other things that we've added into that building to change. So moving over to electricity that I want to talk about, the things that would lead to an increase in electricity consumption, approximately, you know, 1,800 personal computing devices added. With monitors, laptops, we're looking since 96, we worked with Bill a little bit. To come up with those, approximately 100 classroom presentation devices. They were not present in 96. We've grown. Lighting the field house, running fans, etc. Things that would lead to the decrease of electric consumption, changing the kitchen to natural gas. That's big, and we tend to go there. The LED lighting. You'll see another note on there, how many devices we've added. More efficient circulating pumps right along with the boilers. Now they're on a variable drive, they just don't run all the time like they used to. So those would be things there. Now, so if you go over to the graph on electric, all right, you can see the usage there, but you can see all those devices we've added, okay? And let's keep in mind, we're going to talk a little bit about climate control. That's part of us talking today as we're preparing for where we're going to go in the next referendum. That added a chiller to the middle school during that time. We added all those electronic devices during that time. If you look in the classrooms, and always growing. And similar to in the past, our baselines tend to get to be about the same. That's what you do in the summer. But you can see our overall consumption, you know, all these years later, is still below after adding all these devices. So again, I know some of the numbers and I don't want to break them down, but you'll see in the summer where they're there, but baseline after current usage and trend on electricity, you're going to see these are the supporting numbers to the graph that we just provided to you. So what have we been working on and where do we go from here? I want to talk a little bit knowing on the chillers and efficient ways of climate control in the rooms. I've heard in the room a little bit and some being talked a little bit, hey, we're putting air conditioning. Keep in mind in all the classrooms, all these spaces when we're here, we must run that univent interlaid in the classrooms. Right now, we're probably not seeing the best energy numbers during COVID. We're above and exceeding there. I'm running it longer. It's all about health. But regardless, when the room's occupied, we have to have it at a minimum set point, and that must run with a minimum of 10% outside air all the time, the whole time the rooms are occupied or these large group spaces are occupied. So on a chiller, it's not traditionally like where you're going to be working at your homes. They're just turning on your, we're already paying energy to run that fan, we're already paying energy to run that pumps. Now we're going after an energy efficient way of chilling water, and it's more of a climate control. With them will come perimeters that Dan and I are working on to bring back to everyone. Currently we have a minimum set point we try to keep them in the room. We'll be working on a maximum set point that we're going to be talking a little bit. So I just wanted to define a little bit on a chiller versus it thinking it's AC and at home, and we all had the window shakers and put them in there and you're running them. We're already producing the majority of the energy that we need. It'll be the initial cost and the maintaining in them times. So there's a big difference. So what we've been working on to get back, we've installed over 2,500 LED lights in the last 5 years. I think it's actually 6, but that started with a smart bond all the way throughout the district, and during construction, it's a little hard to trend because of the energy on it, but we're definitely seeing it on the months we can see it, the payback to the district. What's been big since I've been in the district, we've done the boilers at Big Flats, Gardner Road, Ridge Road, and I did south about 5 years ago, maybe 6. High School North, we're currently working on it now. We're working on that we bring soon, going out to bid, the Center Street for summer 2021. And that'll be the end of these old steam, and even the ones that were hot water, not nearly the energy used on them. And we have real-time information, and we can have climate control better just for cooling and for heating. Technology upgrades with energy conserving devices, that seems where it's going. Now that everything's networked, real-time information, we're continuing to move forward. We're embracing technology, with working with our current engineers at Hunt and ourselves and Siemens on our controls. We seem to be on the cutting edge there, and very, very happy, going to reap those benefits. Implement and manage district-wide climate controls. I did talk a little on that, and that's what we're working on now, is we'll roll them out to prepare for budgetary. By no means do I see this being something just going to jump right out to us. Okay, I think it'll balance. If anything, I've been very, very fortunate. We'll continue to work with Nyserda, Siemens, district engineers, that'd be Hunt Engineering, as we bring on maximized funds. I think here, as soon as we close out the high school, we'll be seeing another about $50,000 in rebates off some of this high energy efficient devices we put in. On that particular one, we went through Nyserda to provide that on there. Energy efficient saving ways for future 2030 capital project and development is where we're going. Questions? I know I killed it for Dan. Dan was ready, we practiced, we got together earlier this week, and I'll give it my best.
Dan's going to be jealous.
I want to thank you, Mike, for that, the presentation. And I went to the open house yesterday, and I had a wonderful tour with Chad. It opened up my eyes as far as what's going on and the energy part of it. And I don't know if it's the only child in me that just kind of assumes everything based on my perspective, but I see from how the presentation was structured, the increase in surface area with the field house, the added things, and the added devices, and you were still able to make those energy changes. And I've been upfront with Tom, I've been upfront with the community as far as some concerns I have with the Phase 2 and how it's necessary, but, what if scenarios. And this presentation really just kind of just checks all those boxes as far as what the energy would be. And I guess, so I thank you, and I thank you, Tom, for allowing that to happen. Is this something, as far as, we looked at the energy component and expansion, as far as the other components of expansion cost, if the level of detail, not even to this near amount, could be provided, such as, we're talking about maintenance or insurance or anything that comes with adding, expanding a footprint to the district. There again, I was thinking that prior to this, we were going to have huge energy bills, air conditioning, to me, very unknowledgeable in that situation. We have to increase that. So as far as other very specific and I think main ancillary costs to expanding, is that something that can also be presented to the board in that sense?
I think in time,
Yeah, I got a comment on that too.
I think in time, all of those things can be explored. The hard part is we're still doing the daily operations of building, planning, and everything. It's sort of like, Mr. Fernkrantz was very nice. He talked about the facility. If Mike were to take time and just break down how many times he did not have to line 3 fields over and over with the manpower and just the transportation, we can put a number to it. It just takes time to do that. But that's one of the reasons why every school has gone to a synthetic field, because of the ease of use and turnover time, where we didn't. If we wanted to get 2 soccer fields and 1 football field ready, it might take so many man hours. Right now, to get that same football field, Mike will be able to talk to it, but there's a significant savings that we would offset that savings to try to get him more help. And also, to Mr. Azzarelli's point, we feel bad about Southport, but we also know that the state, from what I understand, is planning other uses potentially for Southport. People in this community and all over, but mostly south of Elmira, definitely are majorly impacted. I don't know what the impact will totally be here, but I know this. Anybody there that's looking for a job, we want them to come to us if they want to stay in this area. Whether it's facilities, whether it's maintenance, whether it's in our construction or contracting, or we may need even law enforcement at the start of our board meetings and so forth. But the whole point is, we will pitch in and help our neighbors just like they've always helped us. I think when you look at the end result of a final build for the district, just the transportation alone in a year for modified sports all over the district and varsity sports all over the district, that almost comes to an absolute end, and that's a daily cost and a yearly cost, where varsity and JV would be here because the students are here. Modified would be at the middle school because the middle school's there. All of that are savings that will reproduce in other areas and yet still be fiscally frugal with it to try to manage our budget, and that's what we've been trying to do over the past 7 years. So I think we always want to look at it. I just don't know if time and everything will do it, but we'll try to do our best, and I know Mike will.
Okay, and that's I kind of like, if I needed to exemplify it, kind of like a maintenance cost, as far as...
Because we need more maintenance people at the end of this, no matter what.
Right, and, we're expanding our footprint, we need more cleaners, so but I wouldn't curtail just that.
And Mr. Adams, we're already started the process you have. I don't know I'll have it as global, but it's us coming into budget time right now. These are things we take into account that we're bringing on, that it's going to be parts or there. We're very fortunate we're in the project right now, but that's part of even the budget process, so it comes on in steps and will be delivered in smaller pieces. Probably to go back to Tom, I had to do a study before on a turf field versus a grass field. Elmira Heights had the first turf field in all Chemung County, 20-some years. And what was the value on that? And even just water alone. If you don't have irrigation, you know, if we watered out here off a hydrant, our old field, you might not seen that. You have to do it during the day, you can't really do it at night. It wasn't automated, fire hoses, it was weeks. You know, I could spend thousands, enough that would pay for the lights for the stadium for a year. So that's the balance a little bit, as Dr. Douglas was talking, that we balance, but we take that into account. A little hard right now with some because, you know, we're heating areas that really aren't the most efficient. COVID's out.
And we're still getting work done.
But I also want to just say how smart it is that we're thinking. Keep in mind when we talked climate control, and Chad could say, this wasn't part of the original 2030. It was brought up after talking to staff and the public where we're going in the couple years process. And it was talked like right now, some are saying, why are they getting why can't I? If we would have tried to do it everyone at once, we'd never be able to afford it. So we must take some buildings we get so far. Next time we're back, we'll get there. So that's been our philosophy. But it wasn't added. But what brought it to my attention, it's coming. We have a minimum set point in the state of New York that from September 15th, I must maintain the classrooms at 65 degrees. Good luck trying to do it at 65.
That's cold.
It's because of different humidity and everything. All that fresh air we bring, it's not the same as your house. But they are looking at maximum set points. Number one thing in the state, I sit on a couple different state boards. I don't think they'll ever be able to say tomorrow you must have a max, but we have rooms right now in the 90s. They're not educational settings. I see that. But I do believe as we go forward, anything you do, it'll be tied into the engineering that you must have climate control. And that's the directions it's going, and I feel we're planning for it wisely, and I highly recommended that. All right, any other questions? Yes, Warren.
5 or 6 years ago, the state was looking at solar panels and promoting solar panels for schools. Is that going to come back at all, or do you have an idea where that may be?
Yeah, and actually, we signed up for that. That was it went bankrupt. All right, so the program fell right apart. We signed up. I was up in Chancellor Hall in Albany that day waiting in line to go with it. When we did our case study, it really only worked downstate on the island for electric. Our electric's too cheap here. So I'm not saying that particular program, we did not qualify. I did all the paperwork and followed up, and I think that might have even started with Dr. Marino and carried on a little bit with Dr. Douglas. But we fell, and that fell apart. We're always looking at it, Warren, and our roofs are in a better spot right now. We struggle on acreage. Very few spots we have the ground to have a solar field. But part of our whole thing in doing those studies still, we have the roofs. If it changes and the money will come around, you never know. But we did sign up for that program, and it folded before it went anywhere. There's nothing currently. There's always something. But not at that level that you were seeing at the school board meetings. You know, they got a grant. They got money from the state. The company was running it, so they just told you how everything was. You can get it for free, and that was farthest from the truth. I do not know of one district that ever got off the ground with them. And I believe we were like 120-something on the list, but they did come do the study. We did not qualify based off energy in upstate New York.
Yeah. Warren, our biggest acreage are our roofs. And yes, you can put solar on the roofs. My recommendation, I know Mike's will be, we've got enough that we have leaks. We don't need to put any more leaks in our roof. There are a couple schools in the capital region that have enacted it from its onset, South Colony being one, but they had a field. And what happens is if you have the land, you're at least recouping the energy and helping the company, but it's more so. Right now, if a district wanted to do something, we'd be giving credits away and getting very little in return, but yet giving our solar credits to somebody else, and that may be not something that we're interested in at this point. Right now, it will come back. I think you're seeing it's really more on the commercial side that solar is really taking off in this area. You've seen major fields all over the place. But they are also on the tax roll too, so everyone that goes on, that's good for every taxpayer in Horsets.
So you won't see the programs. They are aidable if you were. I think our needs are greater, Warren, right now. We're not in that. Some of the small, Candor School District, big solar out in the field, mile from there, tied up with their town. They had the acreage. But it was all through, different than the programs you were talking. Something comes out, you'll be the first to know about it. I'll bring it to you. All right, guys, have a good night. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up on our agenda is our superintendent report. Dr. Douglas?
Yes, thank you, Ms. Dale. I have several things to go over with a couple discussion points, but first of all, as I mentioned a little bit, we are trying to gear up now that the county has authorized Test to Stay. And what people need to understand is Test to Stay is just a way for somebody that's deemed a direct contact to be able to attend school daily under daily testing. It can't be broken up. It has to start once the exposure starts and is known for this next 7 days. So we have a protocol. We are getting ready to communicate that out, but we want the board to know that we plan on starting pretty much for those that become direct contacts right after the Thanksgiving break, and I'm just trying to find a date for that. And that would be on November 29th. So if you became a direct contact before November 29th, we're not going to have you. You're going to have to complete that quarantine. We have to draw a sort of a line. So the new direct contacts on the 29th will be available, and we will give them information that they will have to download, fill out, and it will have all the information, consent, as well as the requirement for the testing. And that testing location will be, if the board remembers our drive-through graduation, we are going to use that same format for our daily Test to Stay for all levels at one site. So that's where we are gearing it up. That way it's out of the traffic patterns of the buildings. It will require parents that wish to avail themselves of it for their children a little additional time in the morning. But the way the program works, no child can get on a bus or come into a school without having a negative test once they've been deemed a direct contact. It is important to know for the families that if you are allowed to do direct contact Test to Stay to come to school, it only applies for the school day and hours of instruction. All students must, after school, they can ride a bus home if they've tested negative, but they must go directly home and they must continue to quarantine through day 10. There is no Test to Stay and do athletics or the play in the evening, and that's something everybody will have to adjust to. This is to avail each student of additional instructional time. So we will have that. One of the caveats, however, is if a student is a direct contact of a child or parent in the household, they are not eligible for Test to Stay because there's a high likelihood that that student will become positive and they must complete their full quarantine. So those are some of the major parts of it. We must have an adult accompany the students. We are making an exception for those students that drive to school regularly at the high school, as long as they have their consent signed and everything. But more details will be coming out to explain this via our communication. That should be early next week to get ready. It will be handled through the nurses. We hired seven LPNs. They will be helping us along with our nursing staff each morning. And this program will always be in place as long as we are provided testing supplies from the county. And testing will help the county numbers go down because right now, over the past 4 days, we have seen a major reversal in the infection rate here. So that's just something. We started coming down, we're sort of leveling out, and just like last year, we have Thanksgiving and holidays. That seems to be close quarters, everybody together, that we ask everybody just to be mindful of that, so that hopefully we can get through this. And as the governor is indicating, potentially down the road, hopefully in the near future, they'll be making some adjustments to state protocols for COVID. So that's Test to Stay. So hopefully that's good news. That will help everybody, and we'll have to start slowly and get it off and running. In addition, I've already covered local data. We've sort of covered capital project a little. We have a capital referendum that all the information is on our website. That capital referendum is on December 7th. from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. The vote for that referendum will be in the South Gym, just like we do our regular annual elections, but anyone who is a renter or a homeowner that has resided in the district for 30 days or more, above 18 years of age or 18 years of age on that day, and is eligible to just vote, is allowed to come in, sign an affidavit, and vote that day on the project, whichever which way that they wish to. Ladies and gentlemen, for the board, we just encourage everybody to come out and tell us which way they want Horseheads to head in regards to capital construction. I'd like to, just like Ms. Odell said, congratulate all the fall athletics and music seasons and extracurriculars. We've been back in person and we are trying to make it as normal as possible, although there are still difficulties and challenges in the way. That is one of the things that each day hopefully brings and makes it a little stronger for our students, our community, and ultimately for our county. I need to talk to the board about the retreat date, but I want to just first go, we have a situation where outside people can be unmasked because that's the Department of Health order. They can be shoulder to shoulder. We can have thousands of people at outside events. We have not seen anything negative from that, and that's a good thing. You just never know. However, now as we head into the winter season, almost all of our activities, whether they're sports or extracurricular, are indoors. And for our students, New York State Department of Health, as well as for our adults, require indoor activities must be 100% masked. So we're complying there. There is a lot of gray area on spectators. Like right now, if some people are a seat apart, some people can be sitting next to each other, and so forth. Most of the district superintendents have already gotten together and said what we do for our sports, we also need to do for our others and extracurriculars. We did experiment with indoors volleyball where we allowed people to be shoulder to shoulder, and if you felt uncomfortable, we asked that you leave some room, and parents have been very good, grandparents have been very good. In here, you can see X's on some of the rows. That whole row is broken up. So when we had, like, the play the other night, we only had 2 parents per each child, and it was very sparse, but still, according to our rules for the winter. But I have tried to sample and survey the parents that have come in on multiple events and said, do you feel that this is something that's reasonable, that as an adult you can comply with and would help the situation? And pretty much overwhelmingly, something like an unscientific poll, about 75 to 80% said, leave that to us, but we know we have to be masked. Let us fill the seats. The county does not say no to that. All the superintendents are pretty much putting that into place, and then if there's a problem, we always reserve the right to go back. So what I'm asking the board, just like I said, before we make a shift, I'd come back to the board. How does the board feel about if we allow indoor 100% masking? Somebody that doesn't mask, won't mask, is required to leave. But at our sporting events, at our gatherings, at our concerts, if there's room, we'll tell people that you can spread out however you want, but we're not limiting, but we only have so many seats. Would the board be okay with 100% masking, shoulder-to-shoulder seating capacity for whatever the venue holds? So I'd ask to survey the board and see how everybody else feels.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Just because I wasn't at any of the volleyball games, what did you do about food?
We did not allow food in the area because one of the things about food is, like, we'd allow a bottle, like a Pepsi or a bottle of water. Thank you, Mr. Johnson, I appreciate that. And parents did exactly what Mr. Johnson is doing. They took a sip, they put their mask on. The reason why we don't want popcorn and other thing is because if you got Skittles, you just eat them one at a time, slowly, and it sort of defeats the purpose. So on our regular events, we would not have concessions. However, on our major long-term events, we would actually require that the concession be separated from the event so that people could go there, be spaced, eat appropriately, and if they want, still bring their beverage in, but still use proper courtesy.
So did you have people there monitoring in case people brought their own food
Yep,
in?
our supervisors really did, and most parents,
Okay.
we really did not have any major issue with it.
Okay.
I think parents, grandparents, and even our students, they just want to see the kids.
Right.
Others' thoughts?
So I'm good with it. I just, so situations that happen tonight, that concerns me if we get people that refuse, right? So as long as we have protocols in place and a process in place to address that when it happens.
The board would need to know that if somebody refuses, we will stop all activities. I will clear a room, or I will instruct our AD or supervisors to clear the room until the person complies or is taken out.
Okay.
I think that's our public safety obligation.
I would support exactly like Christine said. I'd support it, and I would be very concerned about the people that, disobey the policy, but as long as there's people in place to remove those people, then I would be totally fine.
And if I can add, we don't like banning anybody, but this is a public entity, but we also have control over the entity, and we only use that when somebody is non-compliant. If somebody is non-compliant, what we will do is we will restrict their access from this property, except obviously to bring their child and drop them off, but don't get out of your car. Or we would say, if you want to come, you've got to get permission from the superintendent or one of my administrators first and foremost. Our intent is not to keep somebody from here, but they do have to comply with the regulations and requirements that we're obligated to by the Constitution.
Warren?
Do I need to do this? Oh, here we go. All right. My first question would be, do we have a sense of, you just said there's starting to be an uptick, and I assume that's because we're coming back indoors from being outdoors in the summer and fall. Is there a number where you would say, all right, we got to not support this policy anymore, and we're just going to have the teams there, period? Do we have a sense of where that would be?
I think that's a fair question. I don't have any set number, but you're right, we do have to monitor it. I think our bi-weekly calls with the county, we always talk to them and say, hey, should we do something? And we take our guidance from them. We have told Pete Pizzetti that these are some of the things that we're doing, both county, even Steuben. Everybody in the GSD BOCES is doing this, but we also wanted to make sure we reserve the right, because if it goes up, I may go back to the 4 passes or the 2 passes. But it's easier to shift to that now because we know we have something that works. Right now, if we can move forward, we just aren't seeing a lot of transmission. Like a gentleman earlier said, I put 9,000-10,000 people in a stadium and we didn't necessarily have an outbreak and nothing was traced back to it. But we always want to be mindful and safe, especially if numbers are going up. The problem is I don't know if those numbers are here in Horseheads or if they're in Southport or Elmira Heights or Elmira or some other place. The issue is that we have to go with that consultation with the county, and I think we do that enough that we can make a rapid adjustment if they're worried.
Right. And then one follow-up. If we go with this plan and there are members of the community that would be uncomfortable with that, are we going to live stream events? I mean, I guess
We will still be live streaming, honestly. The one thing that's probably positive about COVID, we're going to continue to live stream because Grandma and Grandpa that are in Florida or Arizona or something, they have done nothing but say they love being able to see their kid.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Others?
My mic's not working. Here we go. I just wanted to clarify that the question is in regard to the distancing as opposed to masking, right? In other words, under current policy, if we're talking in a school building, masking is already required.
Masking is required. It's not about masking. It's just
Right.
making sure that the board's okay. Katie, if you could move one seat over, please, just for a second.
No, I get it. It's about social distancing.
That they can sit
Yeah.
and they're not related next to each other.
Right.
Versus that.
Right. I just thought it was a little unclear, so
Sure.
I wanted to reinforce that and I'm supportive,
Yep.
but that masking is obviously required. The question is about distancing, and I think, subject to what we've talked about in terms of monitoring rates going the wrong way, I'm comfortable with the idea that we allow people to sit as close as they're comfortable doing so.
So far, to my knowledge, Mr. Filippo, we have not contract traced any spectators at this point, have we? No. And that's through the full fall season, indoors and outdoors. Other questions? Could I just get a thumbs up, thumbs down on moving forward with the shoulder-to-shoulder as best possible unless we're asked to differently or unless we need to because of potential rise that is negative from everyone? We will move forward, starting with our next indoor concerts. Tony, you can communicate that out then. Ladies and gentlemen, the last thing I have is retreat date, and that is for January. We are trying to bring the administration as well as the board, and I might even be inviting some members of our educational, instructional, and instructional support staff to come and sort of, as we as a board and a district, work through diversity, equity, and inclusivity in our district, which is something we've always done. It's just that now we're trying to make sure that we bring it back as we come back from COVID, to make sure that we're always dealing with everybody's individual differences and trying to make sure that this is the best place for all to learn as possible. We are looking for, if I can see, January, around the second or third week before we get into Regents Week would be the target. That would be the 10th through the 21st, and the 17th is MLK Day, so it would not be on the 17th. Is there any preference for somebody to throw out a date? We do have a board meeting on the 20th, so I would probably try to shy away from that week, and if you can go to the week of the 10th, that way you don't have two meetings in a row. We've been trying to minimize that happening lately.
I'd propose the 11th, Tuesday the 11th, or Wednesday the 12th.
The 11th or 12th?
I prefer the 12th.
Both work for me.
Warren, how are you? Either one, either one, either one, either one, either one? 12. 12, 12, 12? Christine?
12, yeah.
12 it is. How's that? That was great. You guys did well. Didn't even have to go back and forth.
From like 4 to...
I would say 4 to 7 for our discussion and 7 to 8 for a board discussion. We will have dinner for all participants. And that way the board can have some time in work session just for themselves to work on board dynamics.
Wait, would you say again, it was 4 to?
4 to 8.
4 to 8.
So 4 to 7 for the ultimate discussion on our policies and opportunities moving forward, and then 7 to 8 for board discussion on board dynamics. Nancy, do you have all that and you'll take care of that in the update? Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, there's a lot going on. We encourage everybody to come out. Again, we have a hearing on November 30th, 6 o'clock in the MMC. That will be our public hearing where the public can give us comments and concerns as they would do like with a budget meeting and a budget vote. At that point, we would move towards the vote on December 7th, 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. in the South Gym, just like we do every year, for the community to decide on Horseheads 2030, continuing our build. Thank you very much.
Okay, next up, we have our board reports. I do not have anything specifically to discuss tonight. We did not have an audit committee report, but we do have a policy committee report, so I'll turn it over to the policy committee.
Okay, we had a meeting on November 4th, and we may look like we didn't do anything at that meeting. We tabled all 3 topics on sexual harassment and diversity, equity, and inclusion. But there, I'll assure you, everyone got their money's worth because we were there over an hour discussing these things. But we tabled them for legal review, and the diversity, equity, and inclusion, I believe we are looking at that as a board retreat discussion. So we get everybody's viewpoints on that. We had a short discussion on curriculum guides and course outlines, and that's up for a second reading tonight, but otherwise there are no first readings that we're recommending for the board tonight.
Thank you. Moving on to our finance items for action, we have 8.02 through 8.18. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any comments, questions, or discussion on any of these items? Warren?
Okay, so on 8.15, the cyber insurance, I have a couple of questions for information. So, for the aggregate liability, it's $5 million. Is that the standard for school districts? Could we get more? Could we get less? Should we get more? Should we get less?
Yep, so when we purchased this last year, the finance committee looked at policy limits of $1, $3, and $5 million. Opted for the $5 million max that was presented to us at the time. We can certainly always ask for more. It just depends on what our threshold is for premium and
Right.
like that.
So the consensus was to go with $5 million, that was the...
That was the intent last we met, yeah.
Okay.
I don't think that's a standard across the board. I think it's just a district by district preference of what you can avoid.
That was sort of our safety tolerance.
Okay. And then on page 5, highlighted in red, it appeared that we had to meet all of the conditions in red before we could have the insurance. I'm assuming we met those conditions. I guess I need information. How did we meet the conditions? What did we do?
So our insurance agent helped us out with a large portion of them, sending them the reports and documentation that they needed. Bill Giancoli and his tech team helped solve the Safari montage issue, which was really the main issue we had with some of our internal software that they weren't too jazzed with. So that issue has been resolved. Bill and the team took care of that this week. So as far as I know, I think we're in good shape to sign all the paperwork and buy the coverage.
Okay.
But I'll touch base and make sure that we're all good tomorrow on approval.
And then on 8.12, the additional services with Welliver, could somebody talk to that issue?
Yep, this agreement came up for 2 reasons. One, our initial contract with Welliver went through the end of this calendar year. But recall we had some delay in the construction because of the rebidding we had to do at the high school. So the construction schedule was delayed until the end of next calendar year. So this document 1 acknowledges that fact that Welliver is going to continue to provide their construction management services for our fee through the end of next year. While also acknowledging that we will pay down the 4% fee as we've done with other vendors for the work of the annual capital work that we do.
Okay. And then I don't know if this is the appropriate place, but I just thought it was great that we were getting a donation on the weather system, 8.16, so.
Kevin?
The question for the cybersecurity, what was the change in premium cost from this year over last? Double.
Yep, nearly double. Our current provider didn't renew us for a variety of internal reasons mainly. So while we were paying $29,000 with our previous provider, this one is upwards of $70,000.
Any other questions or comments on any of these? Doug?
As a BOCES employee, I am going to abstain on 8.07 budget transfers and the 8.14 GSD BOCES cooperative bids resolution to avoid the appearance of the impropriety.
Okay. All those in favor of 8.02 through 8.18, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. And then the abstentions, we have Mr. Johnson's abstentions. Okay, moving on to our personnel items for action, we have 9.02. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any comments or questions on our HR recommendations? Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Thank you. Our miscellaneous items for action, we have 10.02 through 10.06. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any comments or questions on any of these?
Just so out of normal procedure, we would normally have more time on a couple of these overnight field trips. I've made the emergency authorization on the one for the JV varsity basketball. Unfortunately, Oneonta did not know whether they were going to have it just because of COVID. Now that they are, they submitted that, as well as for the overnight for Florida for cheerleading. That is only if they qualify, but they were trying to get it ahead of time so that they can also do fundraising.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Okay, we have our 5 board policies for second reading, 11.01 through 11.05. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any comments or questions on any of these? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Okay, we don't have any first reading policies, so moving on to item number 13, our board member comments. Do we have any board members that would like to make a comment this evening? Kevin?
Thank you. Not going to use my metal mask anymore. The one comment that I would ask, and I would put this to Dr. Douglas, is that the one thing at the comments that were made tonight from the public, in tune with Ms. Harmer's, was that I don't believe that she came tonight asking about her specific circumstances, but asked about the process in which information and how information is received from the public to the board. I have no stance either way, but I do believe that it is in our best interest as a board and our school district to make sure that we are always investigating the best and most efficient ways that the public does feel that they are listened to and how we can do that. And I would ask Dr. Douglas, kind of hard to make eye contact with you, but if we can just look at processes and making sure that if community members do feel that we have the best or most efficient way of being able to access us and be able to make sure that their issues are heard beyond that 3-minute comment that we have. That's all.
Yeah, and if I respond, Mr. Adams, the best way for them to come is they can weigh in also during the 3 minutes, but they also can go through, like Ms. Harmer did, through the process, and that process gets communicated on up. But the decision is not necessarily a decision that comes to the board all the time, because that's not the board's role. However, all information that we have, we regularly communicate to the board, just like we have over COVID and everything else when there's discernment, when there's kudos and so forth. A lot of times it's in our weekly updates that nobody will see, because that's the communication to the board. If they apply into the district clerk, that goes to me, and then I bring it to the next board meeting. We do not do business over email. So we do actively bring anything on to the board, and I think we have, and I asked the board, if I haven't, please let me know.
Any other comments?
If there's nobody else, one of the issues that I have to ask the board to look at, New York state law, because of the rancor and discourse for some individuals out there, and this is now our, I believe, second or third meeting that we've had some discourse that has delayed the board from meeting. The board has the option to go to 100% remote to stop this and provide public comments. Some people have. I would not suggest that at this point, because all we ask is people follow the rules. However, if this continues, I will ask the board, because we have to be able to conduct our business, and I hope the board understands. But tonight, when the board was removed, there was a personal threat made that said, people are coming for me. I've communicated that to the board. I've communicated that to law enforcement. No one has a right to bully or intimidate, and especially if the law is being applied on school property. I would ask the board, what do you wish me to do to these individuals that have now, not on once, but 2 times come in and have now escalated, because I have to have a conversation with law enforcement tomorrow. First of all, it was a threat to me. Second of all, it could be a threat to anyone on this district. How would the board wish me to react?
Kevin?
It is my opinion, Dr. Douglas, that you pursue the full extent of the law you can to these people and to the actions they have made, not only once but twice.
Any other comments? Brian?
I think we should look at a suspension too from school property. I mean, a second offense is pretty serious in my mind. One, we received a warning, but after the second one, I'm not sure what that time period should be, but I think it should be many months.
Doug?
If board action is required to have the superintendent be protected by pursuing legal charges or criminal charges, I would move that the board support the district and Dr. Douglas in that no staff member should be threatened by anybody's in the community with their life, especially if they're serious, but even if they're not being 100% serious, these are serious matters and serious times, then we need to support our superintendent.
Dan?
I concur. The only thing I just wanted to clarify, I think, obviously we were dealing with an individual and it was the second time, and that is one of the reasons for escalation. I think if you had someone, and I guess I'm in favor of, barring exceptional circumstances, sort of giving someone an initial warning, removal, and then if it happens again, seeking these escalated kinds of penalties. But obviously, if in that first time someone makes a threat or acts violent or does something else inappropriate, then I would support pursuing it to the full extent of our options.
And so that I can comment, the goal is allow the operation of our students to perform safely, the board to perform safely, and the district to function. I can understand somebody being irate especially in the situations that we've been in over the past 20 months. But when you've had a conversation twice, both tried to offer twice each time, just follow the rules, and to be told point blank, I have no authority, I should resign, I certainly understand that, that's not a threat. But then to say that we're coming after you, that becomes a threat that now I have, as well as my family, has to worry about somebody. And then when asked, are you threatening me, it says, yes. That's my concern. I would do this for any one of you, and I want if the person has a child in school, I want them to be able to take their child, but they are giving up some of their ability without permission from either myself, this Board of Education, to be on property, if that's the next step. But I would like the board to motion and move forward, and I will consult our legal to move forward to protect the students, the school, the board, myself, my administration, my staff, and my students, and my family.
Christine, can I just make one comment to you? Yes. I want to just be on record saying that I think going back to the first time that this instance happened, we were all in the room at the time, and barring other disagreements or changes of opinion I have with Tom, the one thing that I have been so proud of, and what I have said many times in the community, is that, and we've all seen it on the national news and YouTube, on how superintendents let these meetings go awry, and Tom handled it amazing. And we owe it to Tom or to any one of the staff that we support him in pursuing all the options that he has in providing safety and security for anyone that is a stakeholder for our district.
Okay, agreed. Mr. Johnson, would you like to make your motion again, which I believe that's what you were doing before, right?
Sure. I move that the board resolve to support any legal or criminal action that needs to be taken on behalf of the superintendent or any staff member who is threatened with their life or property or bodily harm after initial discussion to resolve their concerns.
Thank you. I asked you to do it because you are more eloquent in your wording than I would have been. Thank you. Okay. Do we have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Okay. We have lots of seconds. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Any abstentions?
I wish to thank the board, and this way we can keep our meetings open. I will have an officer at every meeting from here on out.
Thank you, and thank you for handling the situation the way that you did. We do want to keep our meetings open. We want community members to come. It's very important for us to hear from community members, but it's also very important for us to follow the rules. And it's not the rules of the district, it's the rules of the state, and we all need to respect that. So thank you. One final comment I have. So I've had children in this, I moved into this district in 2004, I do believe, and I had children going through this district starting in 2005. And I've been at a lot of events, participated in a lot of activities within the district. I'm very proud to be part of this district. But I will tell you, there is one event that I've attended the past few years that does not even make me prouder to represent this district. But the Center Street celebration for Veterans Day is, bar none, the most impressive event year after year that I attend. And I really missed it last year with COVID. And even though this year's event could not be the same that they typically do, the way that they accommodated and did it as a drive-through parade outside, and the kids were so excited, and they had their red and their blue ponchos on and waving their flags and flag masks on, and you can hear the kids saying thank you to every car and every veteran that came through. It was truly amazing, and I think it's, I haven't even had a kid that has gone through Center Street. So, but it brings tears in my eyes every year. And I just would like to thank Mrs. Sotero and the entire Center Street staff, and all the families of Center Street that support your children in celebrating this event. It truly is one of the most amazing things that our district does. So, and I'm not trying to take anything away from all the other events and everything that happens, but I think in this day and age, it's just so special to teach our children respect and thanks, and it's just absolutely amazing. So thank you, and I will always come to it and always be a part of it if I'm invited. So I just want to thank Center Street. Anything else anybody has? Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Okay, thank you. See you all. Oh, I hope everybody has a wonderful Thanksgiving. Sorry, I forgot that we're not going to see each other. And then we will reconvene on the 30th for public hearing.
Ladies and gentlemen, with your new